Welcome to the Quest for Quality podcast with keynote speaker Joe Higgins.
In terms of Quest for Quality, this is really about living a quality life, having a quality career. If you always aim for quality in your life, you will almost always find success at some point in the longer term.
For decades, Joe has shared his Quest for Quality message with thousands of business professionals across the country.
Some of you may know our keynote speaker. I would tell you he's a legend in the industry, and it's great to see him back with us.
I've had the privilege and honor introducing some very famous speakers to you. They were all great speakers and showed you how a winning attitude brings success. But our next speaker is even better. Joe Higgins has walked in our shoes. Joe's the only speaker in our history that we've invited to talk to us 2 years in a row.
The Quest for Quality podcast presents a universal message under the umbrella of 4 areas of Joe's unprecedented experience and expertise. Leadership, building healthy teams, customer service, understanding the American economy.
I'm trying to let people get that message that it's taken me 40 years to learn. I've had a lot of experience. I've gone through major levels of an organization, have trained and worked with and supervised thousands of people over my career and created leaders at the Whirlpool Corporation today that are running the company. So hopefully what I bring here in this thing is allowing people to live a better life and a better quality of life.
Welcome back to another edition of the Quest for Quality with Joe podcast. I'm Tim, and I appreciate you tuning in. A lot of topics that Joe covers in Quest for Quality. We talk about the American economy and where the direction the American economy is headed over the next 10 years, a positive direction, right, Joe?
Absolutely, yeah.
And we'll also talk about customer service and leadership and high-performance cultures, and we're in the middle of a series of building healthy teams, or even just making changes within your own life and your own diet so that you can avoid some of these catastrophic diseases. So Joe, during your Building Healthy Teams presentation, again, just remind our listeners quickly of what you cover in that presentation.
Well, I talk about chronic diseases in America, the idea that every year 2 million people die from high blood pressure, stroke, heart disease, cancer, and diabetes. Is pretty serious. I mean, you think that 16,000 people a year die die from homicides. We worry so much about homicides, yet 2 million die from chronic diseases. So I talk about the diseases, what they are, what you should do about it, and you need to understand how dangerous they are. That's what can give you the incentive then to go out and change your diet and change your lifestyle so that you can avoid these. And mostly they are avoidable if you take care of yourself the right way. That's what I do at conventions.
And that's what you've done with yourself over the last 66 years, never taken a prescription medication, hardly ever sick. Really, it's an inspiration. It is to me, and hopefully it is to our audience as well. Our last topic was on protein. And so if you didn't get a chance to listen to that yet, we would love for you to subscribe to the podcast. It'll automatically download in your mobile device or your computer or your tablet. But now we're going to talk about fiber. First thing I think of when I think fiber is staying regular, right? when we hear fiber, that's why we take fiber, to stay regular. But I've seen a lot of reports in the news on this lately, on the importance of fiber. Seeing a lot of commercials with products that include a lot of fiber, with their packaged materials. Tell me why fiber is so important.
Well, it's funny, over the years, the way I eat, people always ask me how I get my protein. And I always reverse that on people. I always say, how do you get your fiber? Because most research would indicate that fiber is a more important ingredient than protein is, because we get so much protein in America and so little fiber. The average American gets about 15 grams of fiber or less every day. Women should get about 25. Men should get about 38 grams. Men get less than half of what they need. I think that if you think about fiber, it's fruits and vegetables. All plant foods have fiber. All animal foods do not. And if you're eating all protein foods and you're trying to get a lot of protein, you can see that's why you're so limited in the amount of fiber you have. Eat a plant-based diet, a lot of plants, and you'll get plenty of fiber. And you'll feel great, you'll lose weight, and you'll protect yourself from chronic diseases.
That's a win-win-win situation.
Absolutely. Yeah.
What about the different types of fiber? Are there 2 different kinds of fiber?
There are. There's soluble fiber and insoluble fiber. And it's way too complex to get into it to tell you what the differences are on a podcast. But I would say this, that the best thing that you can do for your life and your health is eat a wide variety of foods, because different foods contain different kinds of fiber. There's not one kind of fiber or 2 kinds of fiber. There's many, many different types of fiber. So if you're combining foods like Brussels sprouts and broccoli and kale and avocado and so on, you're getting many different types of fiber. Some soluble, some insoluble. They all have an effect on your body that keeps you healthy. Some of the most recent research has said that fiber can help you lose weight. Fiber can help you from getting type 2 diabetes. Fiber can help you from getting heart disease. Fiber has been associated with helping you in almost every single chronic diseases out there that's killing, as I said, 2 million people. So it's an important ingredient, something we don't get enough of, and something we should get more of every single day.
Well, I've seen some people say, well, I'm just going to get my fiber the easy way. I'm going to put a teaspoon of this stuff in, stir it up, and drink it. Tell me about that type of fiber.
Well, that's what I mean, just what I just said. Mm-hmm. It's one type of fiber typically. I don't know what people are eating. I have a friend of mine that was eating a fiber bar recently. He said, I'm eating this bar that has fiber in it. I said, that's great, but you're not getting the benefits of whole foods. You're not getting the benefits of all the other phytonutrients that are in other kinds of foods, especially plants and vegetables, fruits and vegetables. So when you think about it, I've always said anything that's packaged is something you should stay away from. Shop in the produce section. That's where all the fiber exists. It doesn't exist anywhere else in the store typically because it's taken out of all the processed foods. Mm-hmm. And the reason why people are so overweight and so unhealthy in America today is really nothing but processed foods and high fat, high saturated cholesterol animal foods. And that's where we need to kind of, separate ourselves.
Well, it sounds like it's very simple. We don't necessarily need to do a whole podcast on fiber because it really boils down to just that. We need more fiber. How much do we need? How do we get it? Give us a quick little rundown on some type of foods. You mentioned Brussels sprouts and avocados, perhaps, and beans. But is it just that simple to eat foods that are plant-based?
It is. It is that simple. Every single type of food that comes from a plant is full of fiber. Now, there are some foods that are higher in fiber, for example, than others. And I don't have those off the top of my head. Mm-hmm. But I'll tell you that if you eat a mix of foods, a mix of fruits, a mix of vegetables, you're going to get the fiber you need. You're going to get all the grams you need. You're going to get the healthy fiber, the insoluble fiber, the soluble fiber, and so on. And when you're done with your day, you're going to be feeling pretty good. I always tell people, try it out. You'll feel better. You'll notice right away how much better your body works. A funny story about this. I read a book. It was called The Save Your Life Diet back when I was 23 years old. It was about fiber. It was about population studies around the world and populations that eat mostly fibrous foods, plant-based diet, right? Mm-hmm. And what they found was in those societies that people were very healthy. They were very active much later in life. They lived a longer lifespan. And they compared that and contrasted that with societies where people ate mostly animal-based foods and the difference that made. It was huge. That book is still available. You can still get it on Amazon. But I was given that book by a Japanese doctor when I was, like I said, a 23-year-old kid calling on a customer who was the man who sold the phone company in Las Vegas, Nevada back in, this would have been 1973 or 4 in that period. He was a 260-pound heavy-set guy, had a good life, was a multimillionaire after selling the phone company, lived like that. It went out every night to the casinos and ate great. And he got colon cancer. And I watched him die as a 23, 24-year-old guy. Watched him die until he got down to about 160 pounds. He lost weight every time I came in. Sure. They took him out of the store finally, and he died about a month later. The Japanese doctor gave me the book when I asked, how did this happen? I'd never seen anybody die before. It was my first death in my life. And he said, read this book. He said, and you'll understand. And I did. And ever since then, that's when I began the transition to a much healthier diet, plant-based diet, high fiber, complex carbohydrates. That's really the answer in our world today.
And this is not some 30-something-year-old telling you this information. This is a gentleman who's 66 years old. Pardon me for bringing up your age all the time, but I really do think that just screams credibility that throughout your life you've been very healthy, and here you are in retirement, enjoying it to the fullest because you're able to do all these things that you love to do: run, play basketball, travel without a walker.
Well, there was some more research that was done about. The question was, can a 50-year-old man compete with somebody who's in their 20s? And they were looking, again, around the world at populations to see what was going on. They found in some places, like the Bushmen of Africa, 50-year-old men can run alongside 25-year-old men side by side and compete with them to find food. In America, you couldn't even conceive of something like that. Somebody who's over 60 to be able to run or play or whatever is almost unheard of. And it can be done. And we see that all the time. I used to, when I was running marathons and when I ran the Honolulu Marathon, 65-year-old Japanese men were running those marathons in like 3 hours. They were beating my times. It was unbelievable to see those kinds of results among people those ages. But I met the one guy who was from Okinawa, and he had been a vegetarian his whole life. He ate a little bit of fish, he would say once in a while, but on a plant-based tofu diet, and he, high fiber, and was healthy most of his life. So
one last question on fiber, Joe. Can you have too much?
No, I've never seen anything that would say that you can overdose on fiber. I mean, typically in any given day, somebody who's like me, that vegetarian or vegan, I eat foods with fiber in them all day long. And I've never seen any research that would say you can get too much, no.
Like we talked about protein earlier, it is possible to have too much protein, but this, it just keeps you clear.
It just flows through your body. Yeah, keeps you regular, like you said.
All right. Thanks again, Joe. All right. Quest for Quality with Joe podcast. We're going to put the wraps on this episode. We appreciate you tuning in and invite you to listen to all the other episodes that we have here within iTunes and any other platform you might be listening to this podcast. We certainly appreciate you doing so. If you haven't subscribed yet, we invite you to do so. It's absolutely free, of course. And if you'd like to bring Joe on out to speak to your organization, or if you have an upcoming event or convention, Joe is a keynote speaker and not only, of course, covers the topics on health and building healthy teams, but also customer service, leadership, building high-performance cultures, and the American economy in the positive direction he believes it's headed over the next 10 years or so. The way to bring Joe out is to visit Q4Qwithjoe.com. That's www.4QWithJoe.com. Click on Request Joe at the top of the page there, fill out the form, and we'll get back to you as soon as we possibly can. Coming up in our next episode, we're going to go nuts. Let's talk about nuts and the importance of nuts in your diet here with the Quest for Quality with Joe podcast.